Yo, Tactical Jason, it's time to make you a new knife for your camping trip. Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video. If you're new here, welcome. Hit that like button, consider subscribing. Alright, in today's video I'm just going to show you how I make my knives. Here's just some of the blades I've done so far. And if you check out my channel lately, you'll see some of my videos. I've been making my own knife handles with epoxy resin and pearl pigments and doing all sorts of cool designs and glow-in-the-dark ones. So I'm going to be using a set of scales that I had made previously on the knife I'm going to be making today. Alright, and today I'm going to be making another like hunting survival style knife. This right here was like the third or fourth knife that I made. Really like the multi-green pearl handles. But yeah, not a bad knife. Turned out kind of cool. I used 1095 steel in this. Now I'm going to be using, for the rest of my knives, 1084 steel. For now, that's a really good steel, easy to work with. I'm doing all my heat treating in a single burner forge. So check out my other videos as well for those. For the forge and all the other equipment I use. So what I usually do to start is I draw a design up, draw it onto paper, and I measure my hand to see if it fits good. Put it on cardstock, something like this that's a little more durable than paper. And then you just put this on your steel. And I ordered these through, I can't remember the company's name. It's an American company, steel company. You can get these in smaller packs of like 4 or 5 or you know, on up. These are 1084, 1.5 inch wide, 12 inches long, 3/8 thick. So a perfect starter blanks. So what I usually do is I'll take the paper template and I'll put it on the steel here, and I'll use a magnet to hold that down and then draw it out with a Sharpie. So then once you got your template on there, you use your magic Sharpie to draw it on. That's better. Alright, now that you got your design on your metal, don't worry about that little guy.
Wow!
That little guy is the neck knife that I'm working on. Prototype right there. Yeah, I've been practicing with the Kydex, making the little sheaths. This is going to be one of my neck knives. This is the prototype. Cool little blade. Perfect 2-finger grip. Little spot there for your thumb. So definitely subscribe and stay tuned for that. I got a video. But now, once you have this on here, take this and clamp it to your vise or wherever and cut this out with an angle grinder. That's what I use with a cutoff disc. I cut off as much as I can, and then from there I will take this over to the grinder, show you from there. And this is what I use to cut out my blades. Cheap angle grinder from Harbor Freight. Alright, when you're doing any cutting, make sure you're being safe and wear eye protection and hearing protection as well as breathing protection.
I'm in danger!
Now you want to cut this out with the grinder. Just like that. And right here I have my bucktool, 2x42 inch belt sander and grinder combo. Bucktool is awesome and sent this out to the channel. Check out my review and testing video of that. This thing is actually really cool and a very, very good start if you're going to start making knives for around the $200 range. As some of you know that 2x72s and some of them top grinders can be in the thousands of dollars, so this is a good start. And then off to the side is my super highly advanced water dipping tank. So when I'm grinding and the blade gets hot, dip it in there and keep it cool. And then when I'm sanding the epoxy handles, I have another little tub that sits here with water that the dust can collect in, so the shop gets less dusty. Then what I do is when I get the blank that's rough cut out, I come here and I'll get these curves on the grinding wheel here as close as I can. Then I'll come over to the sander part and smooth them out. And the sander is great for like edges like this. You just put it on there and get nice and flat. Alright, well, I spared you all the grinding and the sparks. So then you get this like this. I just draw on a Sharpie kind of where I want the handle to be. And then I will measure out my holes to drill for the pegs. And on my smaller ones, I usually just do 2. But the bigger ones, I kind of like to do 3. That way there's not like a huge gap in the middle. Plus it's more durable. This thing is going to be used for like hiking, camping, things like that. So for the holes, you want to put it on there where you think it looks good as well as functional. You don't want to leave too much overhang on either side. You don't want the scales to lift up or anything to get underneath of there. But what I use is I got this punch here. You just put it on your little Sharpie hole there. You hit it with a hammer like it owes you money. And then you drill your holes. Alright, then once you get this far and you pick out which scales you want to use for your knife, I have chosen these. Alright, now this part is where you can make or break your handles. You want to place the blade on here, but you kind of want to make sure whatever the design is in the middle is what you want and kind of symmetrical on both sides, unless you're going for just random chaos. But I will place it on there like this in the spot that I want, and then use little clamps like this or little C-clamps, and I will clamp it down and then draw with a Sharpie just for future reference. Then I can take it off and see how I want the design to show through. This is kind of like a violet, reddish, like purple pearls, but then on the inside there's like some glow in the dark. I'm going to try to show you on camera what it looks like with the UV light. Alright, you can kind of see that like design that's in the middle. It's glowing orange. And try it with the lights off. But yeah, it's kind of hard to see on camera. It's easier to see in real life, but try to get a better look at it. So that under the UV light it glows orange, right? And then when you turn this off, like in the dark, it just glows green. So yeah, once you clamp that thing down, then you can drill through for your pins. And what I usually do is when I have the blade clamped to this, I'll drill one hole first, and then I'll put a pin in there, and then drill the next hole, and then put a pin in there just to hold it, just in case it doesn't move or shift on you. It's the last thing you want is when you go to put it all together, the hole's not lining up. Alright, so at this point now you have everything drilled out. Now you can take this over to your bandsaw, or you can even cut it out with a hacksaw, and just cut not right to that line, a little bit before on the outside, leave yourself a little room. So get it kind of rough cut out. Let's take this over to the bandsaw and cut them out. Alright, just like that. And a big mess in my shop. Got these cut out. Alright, now that you know the scales and everything are going to fit, the next step is to put this in the forge, get it up to temp, and do the heat treating. Then after that, we'll temper it in the oven, 2 cycles at about 375. And when I do my bevels and the plunge grind here with my file guide, I'll show you that when it comes time. I always do that after heat treat. I just like to leave the blade this thick when I do the heat treat. That way I don't risk cracking or anything like that. Seems to work out pretty good. Just make sure you have fresh belts when you're grinding, because the steel is going to be hardened. And then that water tank, like I showed you earlier, make a couple little passes and then dip it in the water. You want to keep the blade cool when you do that so you don't lose your temper. Alright, I got my propane tank and my forge, my ammo can quench tank. Make sure to heat up the oil to about 120 to 130 degrees if you're using like vegetable oil, and that's what I am going to be using. Definitely check out my review video of the single burner forge here. Alright, about to fire the forge up to do the heat treating. And how I know the temperature and know when to quench it is I got one of these like welding magnets. So the steel I'm using, and a lot of steel, is about 1500 degrees, or the temperature you need it to be to heat treat it. It becomes non-magnetic. So I keep it in there until it's non-magnetic, get a nice like red glowing color, and then I do my quench. Alright, got the heat treat done out of the forge. I just lightly sanded off some of the scale. Now I'm going to take these inside and temper them in the oven. I'm going to do 2 cycles at 375 for about an hour, hour and a half each. This 1084 steel is pretty forgiving, but I figured that should give it a nice hardness to keep a good edge, but still soft enough to be durable and not have to worry about chipping or breaking. And of course, while I had the forge fired up, I heat treated a couple other ones that I'm working on, like this Kuridashi style like wood carving knife and a couple little neck knives. So stay tuned for that. Alright, well, I will be back after I get these tempered, then I will show you how I use the file guide to get the plunge line. Alright, got the blade out of tempering, and it's like a nice light straw color. Alright, and now to get this plunge line here when you do your bevel. Alright, an important step before you put your file guide on your blade is you want to scribe a center line on the blade. That way you have something to reference when you're sanding both sides, so you can keep the edge right in the middle. So what I did, it's kind of unorthodox, is I have the drill bit that I use that is the same thickness as the steel, 3/8 I believe. So I took the drill bit and I left it flat on a flat surface, and then with some of the epoxy resin from my handles I had left over in a cup, I poured over the edge of it here, and you can see it's completely flat. And then I have just a little popsicle stick kind of in there to like hang on to. So what I do is, so I'll keep the blade down flat, and then I'll take this and pinch this like that, and my finger in to keep this part flat here, and then I'll just go down here and scribe a center line, and since it's the same thickness as that, the line will be right in the middle. And then I flip the blade over, and I do it again just to be sure. Before you scribe your line, what you're going to want to do is take a Sharpie and color this part of the blade black, darken this up, that way the line shows up better. There, you can kind of see that silver line in the middle now. So you got a nice scribe line. So now clamp on your file guide, you're good to go. A file guide like this is just a cheaper one off of Amazon, and it's actually worked pretty good. So now you just gotta figure out how you want to put it on here, if you want it to angle upwards or straight across. To me, it depends on the handle. I kind of like to mimic the line of the handle. Like if the handle points up towards this way, I like to do the plunge line the same. So you just loosen this up here. It's got little Allen bolts on there, and then you slide your blade in like this. And I gotta decide how far up here, how much of a piece of metal I want to leave here. I like to leave a little tiny bit. That way it's not sharp all the way down here, so when your finger's here, you have less of a chance of hurting yourself. Alright, now that I got the file guide where I want it, Alright, then when you got your file guide on here, go to your sander and you just line up this file guide with the belt and go at your desired angle and go like that, and then you can switch it and go this way or flip. I mean, there's so many different ways how people do their bevels. Spare you all the grinding, I'm going to use YouTube magic and finish this like this. Bam! Just like that. Got the bevel in there. Got it sanded on the belt sander up to 120 grit, I think it was. I need to get some different belts, some more varieties of grits, but I'm going to take this off, show you what we got, and then from there I'll show you how I hand sand. Alright, I think it came out pretty nice. So the first thing I do before I do any hand sanding is I have my Dremel tool with these little drum heads on there. I think these are 80 grit, and I will go around the edges, get rid of any remaining like forged scale stuff on there, kind of shine that up before I glue the handles on. Alright, then here we have my hand sanding station designed specifically by NASA. So I have a piece of wood here that I can screw onto the end of my bench. This does a couple things, keeps it nice and flat, and I just clamp it onto there, and then also less of a chance of you impaling yourself on here. So I'll spare you on having to watch me hand sand this, and I will be back when it's done. Alright, then once you have your blade hand sanded and polished or whatever to your liking, I always put some blue tape over it. Then I'll put the handles on here. And another tip, before you glue your handles on, you want to put your pins in here, press them together, and sand the top part here up to whatever grit you're going to be using, because once you glue it, it's going to be kind of hard to sand this without scratching the blade. Alright, now I got the blade all taped off. Now I can get everything ready to epoxy the handles on. Alright, I got my high-tech station set up, and this is what I've been using to glue my handles on my knives. A Gorilla Glue clear epoxy. This stuff is great, works really good. And to clamp them together, it's got the little C-clamp and this little vice grips thing here. For this size of knife, 2 should be plenty. Alright, now that I have this clamped up, now this is the worst part, is waiting 24 hours for it to cure so I can start sanding on the handle.
The next day.
Alright, it's the next day, and the epoxy is cured. I can take off these clamps. Now we can take this to the belt sander and start shaping our handle. Alright, for when I'm shaping my handles, usually I start on the sides to make sure I get it the width that I want it. Alright, I got it off the sander. I got the thickness that I want to start with. I have this all done on the sides. So now I can sand all the edges and the corners and around it where I need to. I'm going to be sanding here on both sides for like a finger groove for that to sit in. And that will also help with the Kydex sheath giving something to click onto. Alright, I will be back after I get some more sanding done. Alright, after some sanding and a little bit of shaping, starting to come together. And here you'll see, you can see the little finger grooves I sanded. So that way when your finger is sitting there just like this, that's like a perfect fit. Alright. The shaping came out pretty good. These little finger grooves up here, this feels great in the hand. So now to make it perfect, I go through the grits, get rid of all the little scratches and polish it up. I'm not going to bore you with all that. Let's take the tape off the blade and see how it looks. Well, alright, there it is. Nice little survival knife. I'm going to start making these and selling these if you're interested. check out my email address in my bio. You can follow me on Instagram. I'll leave a link to that below. Overall, I think this thing turned out really good. The little tweaks I made to the template, I think made it a lot better. The new finger grooves that I add makes it fit in the hand better also. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Alright, now that it's all sanded for the most part, I'm going to turn off the lights and show you with the UV light what it looks like in the dark. Alright, I got this cheap little UV light from Amazon just to try to give you a gist of what it looks like under UV, and then when it glows in the dark it glows a different color. So under the UV, the glow in the dark stuff in there kind of lights up like an orange color, but then when this is turned off and it's glowing in the dark, it's a green color. Pretty cool. See that really cool design in there? Almost looks like lava under the UV light. And then when this is turned off, it glows a really cool green color. I'm going to turn it over and show you the other side. Alright, now I'm going to show you the spine part of the knife. And this effect is from how I pour my scales with the epoxy resin. Make sure to check out my other videos. Like I said, it looks really cool. Like an orange under the light. And then when you charge it up with the UV, it's a really cool green. Yeah, look at that cool design under the UV light. Alright, well, thank you for checking out the video. Check out my others as well. Don't forget to hit that like button, it really helps out the channel. Subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you on the next one.